and welcome to the Reinvent Your Reality Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Palko, and welcome to episode number 17 today, where we are going to discuss the concept of time. Time. Everybody's familiar with time, right? And I thought this was a good opportunity to talk about time, especially because I'm here in New Jersey and we were just hit with the remnants of Hurricane Ida. And whenever something like a natural disaster happens, it's almost like time stands still. Now, we've seen this from 9/11. We saw it, the beginning of COVID, not so much now, but towards the beginning, it's like time stood still and people's regular routines were pretty messed up and everything was kind of, I guess you could call it either chaotic or everybody was thrown off course. But time was almost like a standstill, especially the beginning of COVID. It's like everybody was home, stores were shut, no cars were out on the road. It was like there was no time. So I just wanted to talk about it today. I heard a song on my Pandora the other week, and it was called Time is the Enemy by a band called Quantic, I believe it was. And it made me think, is time the enemy for humankind? Because a lot of us stress so much over this thing called time. But on the other hand, Albert Einstein told us that time is just an illusion, that it doesn't actually exist the way that we think it exists. So if time is an illusion and Einstein is correct, then why does it feel so damn real? I mean, the sun rises and it sets each day, so isn't that equivalent to passing time? I mean, come on, right? Well, quantum physics tells us that everything is all happening all at once, simultaneously. And, what you want in your future already exists. We could get into law of attraction and reality creation techniques and stuff like that. So I find it interesting that our little brains have a so hard time comprehending those statements that I just mentioned. And another quote I just wanted to mention is, time is your only enemy. It disappears very quickly and never gives you a second chance. So I thought that was interesting as well, that quote. I forget who it was by, but time is basically an expression of motion. Okay. So it's not an actual thing. It's just that we think it's a thing. We perceive change and equate it to passing time. So that's how our brains perceive it. So let's get into it. Why time is the enemy. So I'm going to give you a few reasons why here, why we can consider time the enemy, just like that song that I heard on the radio. Number one, we are slaves to it. We really are. We rely on it for pretty much everything, I would say. Therefore, it's a form of internal pressure. Gives us anxiety, right? We're either a ticking time bomb or we're bored because we've got too much of it. So it's interesting how one person can experience time and another person can experience that very same time in such a different way. Don't you agree? So if time is the enemy, why do we all abide by it, right? I'm just saying. So the concept of time is neutral, but we always tend to view it in a negative way, right? We're always saying, or we hear people saying, oh, there's not enough time. There's not enough time. On the other hand, we hear people saying, this day is going so slow. There's too much time. I have nothing to do. Like, I'm bored, okay? So, number two, most people, is going to lead me to number two. Most people feel like they're running out of it. They're running out of this illusionary time thing. Interesting. We're running out of something that doesn't actually exist. So, let's take aging, for example. Everybody is trying to preserve themselves and prevent the aging process. It looks at such a negative thing, aging, right? But it's not that time is actually passing. Now, this is going to be really hard for even me to comprehend, but it's just that we perceive dynamic states of change in the universe as a linear form of time, okay, as an aging process. The universe is always in a state of dynamic change. We are also as human beings. So what our brains do is we take in the information and then we perceive it as time passing, right? And we're running out. We're running out of time. We're running out of time. We're running out of time. But can time really run out? Can it? Well, you could say it's just our ego can't handle it. We're trying to get everything done in 24 hours or else. Or else. Or else what? Or else it won't get done. We create so much stress for ourselves, I swear. It won't get done. So basically what that means is that our ego can't handle the idea that we won't get all that we set out to do done in a 24-hour period. Because that's how we work, that's how society works, all that kind of stuff. But just realize this, everything is always in a state of change, so we are perceiving it as time passing. Number 3, time takes us away from being. Don't you think? Even if we're meditating or we're at the park and we're trying to relax, we still find ourselves looking at our watches. And we're asking ourselves, all right, is the time up so I can go back to worrying about time? The idea of not looking at our watch or phones a bunch of times seems unappealing most of the time. So again, we're slaves to it because it takes us out of the present moment. Okay? Number 4, we're merely occupying time. Isaac Newton said this, and also that we can only understand relative time relative time is the measurement of objects in motion. So if nothing moved, if everything was like a statue and everything was just frozen, it's like the Twilight Zone, that episode where everything's frozen, and there was one person witnessing it and they're like, what the hell? Then we would perceive it as no passing, and we would perceive it as time standing still. So it's when things start moving again that we go back to looking at our watch. So if things were frozen, everything around you, your neighborhood, your neighbors, your pets, everything was frozen, you would perceive that as time stopping. Interesting, right? Dr. Joe Dispenza also talks about getting to a place of no time. In a lot of his books, if you're familiar with him, he does books, seminars, stuff like that. And this is the time in meditation, getting to a place of no time, of essentially nothingness, to implement new data into our big head of a computer. He's an interesting guy too. And I've tried his meditations and getting to this place of no time and nothingness, and it's really freaking hard, really, really freaking hard. And you find yourself wanting to let go, wanting to get to this place, but because we've been so trained and we're just so trained to time that we start almost forcing ourselves or efforting getting to this place of nothingness. Okay. It's like meditation right now in the modern world. People are kind of forcing themselves to relax when relaxation is just a very natural thing. Okay. So if we, number 5, okay, we think that if there were no such thing as time, that everything would be chaos. It keeps us structured, right? Keeps us structured, but it also gives us constant anxiety. Funny how that works. So anyway, even though we can't really comprehend a world of no time and of things not constantly moving in a forward motion, we can at least pretend to understand and ask ourselves a few questions. Some fun questions for you, okay? Number 1, if I could move backwards or forward in time, which would I choose? Why? And what would I do? Interesting. Where would you go? Number 2, if there are, in fact, parallel versions of you right now, what is your best version doing right now? That's a good one. That's a juicy one. What is the best version of yourself doing right now? Okay. Number 3, if I could stop time right now, what would I do? What would you do? What would you do? How would you feel? How does time affect your life? And I know you're going to say, well, Jen, we need to be in some kind of structured time frame in order to go throughout life. And that's true, because that's just how our society works. It's how we work as human beings. It's how our brain works. We think in a linear fashion. But it's interesting to think about how much control time has over us. How much this thing that we think is real, that seems so tangible. But it's kind of like the wind. The wind is there. We know it's there. We know it exists, but we can't see it. You know, it's like we can't see time. We feel it exists. I don't know. I don't know if that made sense. Anyway, time. Yeah. When time stood still. So why is it that during natural disasters and things like that, where we lose our anxiety about time so much and we focus on other things? You know, I've always thought this was interesting, and I'm not promoting any kind of natural disasters or anything like that, but it does bring us together a little bit in a way where we forget about all the things on the outside and all the things that are wrong, you know, with each other and our labels. And so we kind of put our focus away from like beating each other as individuals and, you know, judging each other and criticizing each other. And we just become like these human beings who are trying to get through a particular ordeal. It's interesting how we go to a place when something complex happens or something horrible happens, we go back to a place of simplicity. Because what happens is we're thrown off course. We spend so much of our lives in our ego and going throughout life just unaware of what we're doing or unaware of our spirit, or we're just living in this very kind of superficial way. And then something throws us. It's almost like Mother Nature or whoever, God, universe, smacks us in the face, wakes us up, and we go back to being like our true selves. Not who we think we are, but who we actually are. And we're all the same. We're all in the same boat. Right? Something bad happens, flooding happens, or 9/11 happens, or pandemic happens. And suddenly, like, we shift a little bit. We change. I always thought this was interesting. So think about your life right now, what you're going through. If you're really, really, I don't know, fighting with yourself, fighting with others, fighting with society, fighting with the government, all this anger, right? Think more in simple terms. Like, is it worth it? Is it worth it to constantly have anxiety about this thing called time, this construct called time, just because other people have anxiety about it? And it's kind of like it catches on, it gains popularity, worrying about something that in the end may not matter that much. Think of all those times where things stop, right? Suddenly, 9/11 happens. Your job doesn't matter today or tomorrow necessarily. What matters is that you survived. What matters is your life. What matters is helping your neighbor out, or helping, an old lady out who has nobody. It's shifting. It's shifting. And I think we need to get back to that place. And, we're all guilty of being in our heads, being in our ego. I'm totally guilty of it. And we forget. We forget to live simply. I'll tell you a story. Monday and Tuesday of this week, I helped out at a COVID testing clinic at Princeton University. And not rocket science, for $16 an hour. I was just directing traffic and directing people where to go, what pods to go in with the nurses and stuff like that. And while it was a very simple, mundane job, boring, very boring at times, I got pleasure from just like smiling. I had a mask on, but smiling and being nice to people. And them being nice to me back. It's a funny thing when you smile at people and actually look at them, not through them, but look in their eyes and you're friendly to them, they're friendly back. They're friendly back. And it's interesting that when you're angry and you're just spitting and shouting at somebody and telling them what's wrong with them, that they'll respond in the same way. So life is, it's such a mirror. It's such a mirror, and our body language reflects that. Totally. So that's what I'm getting at. Be aware of how you are talking to people, how you're acting around people, how you're projecting yourself. And, if you want change to happen or you want things to move in a certain direction because of time, right? Just become aware of that. I just thought I'd bring that up. But something so simple could bring you joy and pleasure. Something boring or mundane can actually light your spirit up in a certain way. See, we don't think this. We always think like, all right, what's going to light me up is how much I can get done in 24 hours, or else I'm going to feel really horrible and stuff like that. Or I don't know. But sometimes it's the simple things, because really, 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 we're simple beings. I don't know where or why we make ourselves more complex than we are, or we try to be like something we're not. I've mentioned this before. It's like people who are trying to live out of body, but they're not. I don't know. I was watching actually on PBS last night. There was I didn't watch the whole thing, but part of it on the Buddha and how he was trying to reach this state of complete enlightenment and something beyond by starving himself, giving himself the basics of what he needed. Like, this is simplifying, but not recognizing, but not in a human type of way. So he was basically starving himself, eating like 1 grain of rice a day, fasting, pretty much putting his body through hell to reach this place of something non-human. But then he realized like he didn't find what he was looking for doing that either. So it wasn't until he started eating again and nourishing his body that he understood that wasn't the way. Okay, why am I trying to not be human when I'm having a human experience right now? Right? Why do we do this? Why do we try to beat time? Why do we try to, I don't know, disregard time? Why do we do what we do? I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Just a little food for thought. Hope you're well. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it. If you want more information, you could find in my bio below. You could go to my website, jenpalko.com. I have a YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/jenpalko. I put out new videos every single week. I try to do these podcasts more often now because I like doing them. But check those out. Check out my new book. And have a great day. And I'll talk to you on the next podcast. Have a great day. Peace.